Duke Professor of Conservation at Duke University's Nicholas School of the Environment, and he's one of the most distinguished and highly cited environmental scientists in the world. Specializing in the science of extinctions, his work has been critical to the translation of scientific insight into action, as he regularly lends his expertise to the House and Senate chambers of Congress. Additionally, Dr. Pym now leads Saving Nature, a nonprofit organization working to restore fragmented forests and other biodiversity hotspots of the world. So please welcome Dr. Pym.
Thank you so much, everybody. And let me start by saying how much fun I've had over the last 2 days. I haven't been present for all of it, but I heard most of the plenary talk, I heard all of the plenary talks, and I've just spent 2 hours listening to a bunch of presentations, and they just made my day. They were so much fun. They were so creative. There's so much passion. Anybody who thinks the planet is going to go to hell, haven't met you all, because I know after today that you are going to ensure that we look after it. And I felt wonderfully inspired and impressed by what I've encountered over the last 2 days. I think I have several messages. I'm going to start with Al Gore, the former American vice president. He did a book, a movie, called An Inconvenient Truth. And in An Inconvenient Truth, he talks about species going extinct 1,000 times faster than they should be. And you might wonder from whom he got that, and the answer is from me. Now, I wish he'd have said, my good buddy, Stuart Pym, and given me a verbal hug, but you take publicity any way you can get it in this world. So, I'm the guy who notices that we are abusing biodiversity. So the question I get from the media all the time is, how do I get up in the morning? How do I face the world when we're losing species? Well, I face the world because I know there's an awful lot of things we can do about them. So I'm encouraged by all the things that we can and must do if we're going to protect our wonderful natural heritage, protect it for you, protect it for your children, your grandchildren, for countless generations to come. Conservation is new. Conservation science is a very, very new scientific discipline. Like Lord Elrond in Lord of the Rings, I was there at the beginning. I was there on a Thursday afternoon just after tea time at the University of Michigan about 35 years ago, when we voted into existence the Society for Conservation Biology. And because we're a new science, we are still learning how to do this thing that we call conservation. We're still figuring out what it is. And that means that we have to try different things. We have to be innovative. We don't know what's going to work, and we don't know what isn't going to work. I hold the Doris Duke Chair of Conservation. It's the first endowed chair of conservation in the world. And I think that's an awesome responsibility, because I have to try, and in some ways, sort of define what it is that we mean by this thing we call conservation. And that means that we have to try lots and lots of different things. The only thing you get as you grow old is I hope, more wisdom, more experiences. And one of those lessons is that the people who have the best ideas also have the worst ideas. The more bad ideas you have, the more good ideas you'll get, right? And you'll throw 90% of your ideas away, maybe 95% of the ideas, but boy, will those 5% of ideas pay off. And I want to talk about two technological ideas or technological advances for which I am a proud, if not parent, certainly a godparent. The first one is 20 years ago. That's probably a lifetime for most of you, but it's not that long ago in terms of world history. 20 years ago, if you wanted to understand what was happening to the planet, you had to go out and buy a satellite image, a Landsat image, and it cost $2,000. And if I wanted to see whether a particular place had changed, I had to buy two of them. So that was $4,000, assuming that the image was on the right place. And typically it wasn't. So, you know, if I was interested in this area, I'd probably have to buy 4 images twice, you know, so 8 images, $16,000, just to see whether something had happened. And the problem is that if I had some images, and my good friend Martin Brooke had some other images, I couldn't say to Martin, I'll show you my images if you will show me yours, because that wasn't allowed. So I used all the influence that I had to get an hour of time with Dan Goldin, who was the NASA administrator. And Dan Goldin was famous for being a monster. He would not come into the room until you had your, your slide presentation up and running. And if he got bored, he would just get up and leave. So I had an hour to keep him entertained. It was the most academically terrifying experience I've had in my entire career. And what I was asking him for was the world twice. I wanted a global coverage of Landsat images for 1990 and 2000. And please, sir, I'd like them for free. And I'd like them to be cloud free. Cloud, no clouds, a few clouds. I want the world twice. The world is not enough. I want it twice. And I got it. Because of that gift from NASA, we got Google Earth and we got a lot of other things, and we got the ability to see land use change. You take that totally for granted. And the reason that I've told you that story, ancient history, although it is for most of you, is the fact that technology can change in very, very dramatic ways. 20 years ago, there were people who did not understand and did not accept that we were destroying the world's rainforests. They could deny that. With Google Earth, you can see the changes. It's straightforward. Let's move forward a decade. We're sitting in my lab at Duke and thinking, we know what's happening to the world. We've got this satellite imagery. But we don't know what's happening to the species that are present there. And the conversation I was having was with Scott Lowry, who I believe was one of the participants in some of your workshops. And Scott and I discussed the fact that this is the most extraordinary device for studying biodiversity. What happens if there were an app that you could take a picture of something and identify it and put that record up, into a database? And so, yes, I am a godparent of iNaturalist, a program that now records 1 million observations a month. When Scott told me that we had 1 million observations in the first year, I was enormously excited. Now it's 1 million observations a month. For birds, we have eBird. There are now close to 1 billion observations. So the technology that's sitting on my phone, I've got eBird and I've got iNaturalist. has dramatically changed the way in which we can study biodiversity. And I'm naturalist, and the fact that we have the databases that go into Google Earth are technological advances that made a huge difference. So the first lesson is technology really can be game-changing in every sense of the word. Technology matters. But there are some other lessons that come from that too. One of them, quite clearly, is that once you've got a technology, if you're not careful, the stream of data that comes in overwhelms you. You go from having no data at all to having too much. We've got not only, I mean, Landsat data now, which is what was the Christmas present I got for the world 20 years ago. We go, Landsat, it's a 30-meter pixel resolution. That's terrible. I want more. I want much more. And so I fly my drones around and I take images using drones where the pixel resolution is 3 centimeters, not 30 meters. But the problem with all that is how on earth do we process all those data? So one of the challenges of technology is we go for a long time without it, and then we're suddenly overwhelmed by it all. Another example is camera trap data, putting out camera traps into the forest to find out what's there. A decade ago, it had to be a film camera because electronic cameras didn't switch on fast enough. So you had to have a mechanical camera to go click. Now, of course, we have electronic cameras that they provide, you know, not just tens, hundreds, but millions, tens of millions of images. And we have way outstripped our ability to analyze those images. We analyze those images basically by using students, but we're also developing some AI approaches with students here at Duke. But you get the idea. The ability to synthesize data is way behind our ability to collect those data. The next point that I would make is that technology has to be appropriate. It's no good having something that's terribly sophisticated and clever, but you can't get it into the hands of the people who matter. An awful lot of the world is populated by very, very poor people. And getting a technology that works in the hands of people who are not sophisticated, who might not even read and write, can make all the difference in the world. So I'd like to talk about one of my former students, Kriti Karanth, who is in India. One of the problems that people living next to national parks in India encounter is that, you know, a tiger comes out of the forest and it kills their cow, or an elephant tramples their crops. What do you do about that? The Indian government has a compensation scheme, and you may have a very, very cheap cell phone, but to fill out that form to get your compensation might mean that you have to travel 25 miles to the nearest county headquarters, fill out a lot of forms, and you may not know how to read and write, and then go back some other period of time to see if you're going to get a payment. So what Kriti developed was, you know, an 800 number, an application, whereas the poor farmer can pick up the cell phone, call Kriti's group, somebody will come from their group, fill out all the paperwork, get them their money and pay them. It's a very simple piece of technology, but it's extraordinarily effective. The final lesson that I want to share is to do with the difference between power and leadership. And for the physicists and engineers out there, power is a scalar and leadership is a vector. Leadership has a magnitude, but it also has a direction. Power is just a scalar. It's just having a lot of stuff. Having new technology, having abundant technology gives us power. But does it give us direction? Do we know where to go? Do we know what to do with it? And I think the challenge that we have now, the challenge that you must address is what is the direction into which you want to go? Now, this was sort of hinted upon by many of the speakers over the last couple of days. You know, why are you developing this particular piece of technology? Is it because somebody is paying for you to do that? I've nothing against you guys getting paid. I have a job, you need a job. I'm all in favor of people having a job. I'm all in favor of people getting grants. But the question is, what are we going to do with that technology? What's its point? And I have approached technology not from the point of view of thinking, wow, isn't this wonderful? Isn't this clever? Isn't this a clever piece of equipment? But because I want to solve a particular problem. The problems that I want to solve 20 years ago were knowing where land use change was taking place. I wanted to know where the frontiers of deforestation were. And that 1 hour with Daniel Goldin at NASA gave me the world twice and the ability to identify where the front lines of conservation were going to be. I didn't build the technology. I didn't build the satellite. I even used other people's software to look at the changes in the landscapes. But I knew why I wanted that world twice, because it was to solve a particular problem. Scott Lowry and I, in our discussions that led to iNaturalist, knew what the problem was. We needed to know where those species were. With that information, 15 years ago, having won a wonderful international prize from the Royal Netherlands Academy of Arts and Sciences as opposed to the Royal Swedish one, I have to say, you know, that Alfred Nobel chap was famous for inventing dynamite. I have no great love for dynamite. I got a prize from Freddie Heineken, yeah, the guy who brewed beer. So I'm much more proud of my beer prize than a damn dynamite prize. So with my beer prize, I founded what is now Saving Nature. And we restore the world. We stitch together isolated habitats in the places that matter, because the technology tells us what those places are, and the technology tells us what species are found there, and our camera traps tell us what's moving through these habitats that we have restored. So, to sum up, I have hugely enjoyed spending the last 2 days with you all. I wish I'd had more chance to meet with you. I wish we were all, you know, meeting together in person, and I hope that will happen. I find you the most amazingly engaging and stimulating group of young men and women. Technology is going to change our lives. Be ready for that. Things are going to be very different 5 years from now, 10 years from now. But above everything else, think about where you want to go, what you want technology to do for you. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Dr. Pym. yeah, we're just gonna wrap up the rest of this event with just some more closing statements and then our awards. It's very exciting. Great. So first, we just want to say thank you to everyone who was here this weekend, to our 5 speakers, our 10 mentors that helped out throughout the event, and then we had over 100 people sign up, but we really want to thank especially you guys who have stuck it out to the end and really came through with your projects, and we really enjoyed seeing all of them. We briefly also want to say that we do plan to send out like a swag bundle to all of you participants. So that'll include some stickers, a t-shirt, and a tote bag for this event. We'll also be sending out this link after the event via email. So don't worry if you can't get the information in right now or can't fill out the survey right now. But this is also a space where you can give us some of your feedback about the event and what we can do better for the future. And so now we're going to go into the awards. So just to reiterate what this looks like, we'll have a grand prize winner, which will be like the overall highest scored from all of the teams. And then from the 3 remaining tracks, there will be track winners that were the highest among those tracks. And I want to thank our judges who went around during the expo. So that was Dr. Brooke, Dr. Pim, Josh Firth, Sam Kelly, and Natasha. So without further ado, we'll go for the track winners first. So our track winners were for environmental justice, Team 1, defending environmental defenders. For resource exploitation, Team 6, Palms Off. And then for the biodiversity track, it was Team 22, Reforest Nation. And also, I forgot to mention, but each of these track winners will get $500. And this will be in either seed money to continue your projects, or if you choose, we can have this money be donated to a charity of your choice. So we'll reach out to each of the teams after the event to see what you would like to do. And then for our grand prize winner, who won with the highest score out of all of the different projects, this is Team 8, Rinse and Repeat. We really enjoyed your project and just how detailed you got in talking about these peat forests. And yeah, so thank you. Everyone can clap if you would like to. But yeah, I just want to say thank you to every one of the groups. Again, you guys all had really amazing projects. Some brief announcements. Now, just if you want to keep getting involved in this sort of these sort of events or working on this sort of conservation solution in the space in the future, like Peter had mentioned in the opening speech session, there's a Rainforest X Prize, which has much larger monetary prizes and like grants to work on your projects. So I think they go up to like $5 million so they can fund your work. But this is a really big program right now that's working on just conservation technologies in the rainforest. And I think the application deadline is soon-ish, or it's in March, I believe. But also, if you are a Duke student and want to get involved, you can also reach out to Dr. Brooke, who is always looking for people to contribute to these projects. And additionally, he also has this rainforest engineering class this coming semester. And I think you actually have a lot of plans ahead. So maybe doing a Duke Engage in the future, and also a Bass Connections in the future, all related to kind of using these conservation solutions and making these applications in the field. And then finally, this announcement. So DCT, Do Conservation Tech, has another event going on in the spring. So we're hoping to put on this environmental justice symposium. So whoever was really interested in the environmental justice workshop that we had this past weekend, we'll be having kind of a more robust event for that. Just engaging with speakers in environmental justice from all different spaces. So there will be, this is like the interest form linked, but we will also be sending that out if you want to participate in the future. So once again, thank you guys for coming. Yeah, and thank you everyone who is involved. Yep.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Thanks.